Lab4 is relatively unknown production here in Canada. Adam and Lens have been together since 1991, and from there they've evolved their hard, dark sounding trance into what you can hear today. They have returned to Toronto for the 4th time. Adam, what keeps you coming back?
Canada's always been it's always been a fun gig and a bit of a challenge, actually. There's elements to what we're doing that I think maybe are very European elements. There's a very punk element to what we're doing, I guess. Neither of us are overly into punk, other than the whole movement. And I think for us, Lab4 is always about a challenge. Until we, for us, it's all about giving people a new experience. And even in the UK, where we're playing every weekend, you would figure that maybe people have had that experience and stuff, but we kind of feel there's always just a bit more to give somewhere, you know. And so every gig we've had in Canada so far has always been good fun, but we still have some more to give, so so we keep coming back.
You guys have a very unique sound and show. Combine the two elements. It's something you don't hear or see in any other live band. What's the key to your success in that aspect?
I think it's maybe a very basic element that makes life worth living, in that maybe if you never quite get what you want, you get close to it, but there's still something you just want a little bit more. And both of us grew up dreaming to be playing in, you know, a stadium rock band, bands like Kiss or Aerosmith or Metallica, that kind of thing. And life doesn't always just work out kind of the way that you would maybe most like it to. It works out, if you're prepared to adapt, it can work out in kind of a good way. But we found some real excitement that we could stir up on the dance scene, coming from the roots of being in a rock band and that kind of stuff. But still, maybe at the end of the day, every single gig we do, if it's the best gig we've done, there's kind of something inside both of us where we like to kind of still be sat behind drum kits and guitars in a metal band. So even when you've had the best reaction you could wish for, there's still maybe just that extra little bit that you want a bit more. So it's a good way to keep driving you on to the next level, you know.
When you first met, you were in a metal band. How much has that influenced your music today?
Like I said before, when you grow up and you're in a rock band and stuff, your first goal is to try and build up a fan base. Next goal being to try and get the interest of record labels and stuff. But your first goal is to build up a fan base, because you get paid based on how many people you pull to a gig and all that kind of stuff. And it's a very good way to develop your skills and what you're doing, because ultimately at the end of the day your goal is to write music that just gives the most people the biggest experience you can. And when we came into the dance scene, we realised that the DJ culture was very different. Oh, actually, we didn't even realise this. We came onto the dance scene and figured the first thing to do is to get a live set together and do gigs. And then it was a while later that we realised that what was a little bit different about what we were doing is that we knew how to interact with a crowd and audience. And ultimately, if you're a rock band, at the end of the day, the goal is to just hit that high point with the kids in the mosh pit. You know, it's all about the moment. And doing a live set, we often get booked for an hour, whereas the DJ's playing 2 hours. And you can make everything much more intense in an hour than a DJ. The DJ has to, you know, make it work over 2 hours. He has to keep it paced and stuff, and we can push things a little bit more, which is quite exciting. So I think the interaction with the audience and just intense blast for an hour is maybe what sets us apart a little bit.
You mentioned mosh pit. Would you rather be on the dance floor or in a mosh pit?
A mosh pit, I think. The last time I was on a dance floor was actually in a mosh pit at a Marilyn Manson gig. So, and at the moment, my biggest disappointment this year is the only opportunity I would get to go and see Slipknot and get in the mosh pit at a Slipknot gig. We're going to be on tour in Australia. And no doubt when we get back from Australia will be the dates that Slipknot do in Australia. So yeah, mosh pit, I think.
Your gear can take upwards of 6 hours to set up and then take down. And when you were just starting together a dozen years ago or so, you'd spend entire days just working to get everything set and correct. What motivated you to continue at that time?
I think at the end of the day, it's still that there's two kinds of musicians. There are the guys whose entire existence is based around being a musician and playing music. And there are people that just think it's a cool thing to play in a band, you know. And if you're in the first bunch where your whole existence is just, it's kind of like it's an instinct. It's something you have to do. You have to get up and do gigs and play music. It's just what you have to do. And so if it takes 6 hours or 8 hours or however long it takes, kind of just get on and do it, you know. It gets a bit boring sometimes, especially if you're jet lagged and you've done maybe 2 or 3 flights and 2 gigs in a row and not slept, and then you have trouble on stage or the gear's not working. It gets a bit boring at times, but still at the end of the day, adrenaline just keeps you driving, because however much trouble you're having on stage, you're still in your head, you're still focusing on the set time that you're playing, and that's just what keeps you driving. You know, you've got maybe 3 hours and you're on stage, and then you've got 2 hours, and then you have an hour, but you're still just focused on that set time. And just ultimately, you know, you never know how the crowd's going to react, you know, and hopefully they're going to just be into it. But that's just still what keeps you going, you know.
What has been your biggest setback so far for the group in your entire career?
Possibly, our biggest setback has possibly been the same thing that has put us where we are on the scene. We're both capable of writing music that would be much more commercially viable, but we get really bored easily. So for us, what makes Lab4 what it is, for us it needs to be exciting. It needs to our goal is to give everyone the best we can give and excite everyone as much as we can, but our goal isn't just to keep people on the dance floor, it's to give them an experience, and sometimes that's not what everyone wants, and that's not the kind of thing that sells loads of records. It's the kind of thing that gives people nights that they'll remember for the rest of their lives, which is ultimately what we do want to do, and it's what makes Lab4 what it is. So I guess we're still surfing at the top of the underground, in that our music's not the most saleable thing, but it's possibly the most kick-ass experience you'll get in a club, you know. So and we're not very good at just writing stuff just to sell units.
Well, I'd have to agree with you there. The set you just threw was incredible.
Yeah, you know, writing to sell units is all, it's just not very inspiring, you know. It's not exciting and stuff, so I would much rather see a bunch of kids on the dance floor experience something they've not experienced before. So
What has been your biggest mishap on stage or on the way to an event?
We had a big mishap today. Actually, most of our gear runs on 230 or 240 volts, and you're on 210 here. And we have a step-up converter that we've been using in Canada for a few years. We plugged it in and it caught fire, which was a bit stressful. And then we had a sound card packed in on us when we were sound checking as well. And luckily, the sound engineer managed to wire up a new power supply for us. And in our experience, if you have a very bad sound check, then usually the live set goes okay, which is what happened today. Probably the worst thing that's ever happened to us actually was only a few weeks ago in Holland. It was a big event called Impulse, maybe 25, 30,000 people. And just as we were about to come on stage, the environmental health people turned up. And at midnight, the maximum level should go from something like 110 down to 98 decibels, and they turned it right down to 87 decibels, which, just to give you an idea, if you had like a moped, a really tiny motorbike, went past you on the street, that's about 97 decibels, And we couldn't even hear ourselves on stage, and we're playing in an arena that's maybe 8,000 people, and we're the headline act in this arena. And it's really difficult for people to understand that we're not in control of the actual the noise level, the volume of the sound system. And the whole place started chanting in Dutch, which we didn't understand, and we found out later they were chanting at the sound engineer to turn it up. And it was just the environmental health people, and they turned it down 10 decibels too low, and right at the end of our set they realised they turned it down too low, so they turned it up again. So the DJ comes on after us and is relatively fucking loud, and it's really bad because you come off stage and people are thinking, live music doesn't sound as good as records, and technically it should sound better because you can get a load more bass from a live rig than you could cut on vinyl, all that kind of stuff. But you come off stage, there's nothing you can say. You can't get up on stage with a microphone and say to people, look, sorry guys, this wasn't our fault. It's for all the glamorous stuff, you pay for it tenfold when you're on stage and something like that happens. You've got 8,000 people and maybe half of them leave the arena because the sound is bad, So that, at the moment, that's in 10 years actually, that's probably the worst experience we've had. So the good thing was we did get hundreds of emails of support from the people in Holland saying they understood what was going on.
Perfect. You've been signed to a smaller label. How has that affected your music?
Again, the labels we've been signed to has really been based on more to do with us, or record labels coming to us and saying, we really want to do a Lab4 release. So we give them the tunes that we've got that are ready to go. And they say, yeah guys, they're a bit weird. We're like, well, they're not really weird, they're just, it's just Lab4, that's the way it goes, And they're like, well, can you just soften them a little bit? And we're like, right, you can't do that, you can't, I don't know, I think we're old enough to be aware that if we compromised what we're doing just for record sales, then it wouldn't be Lab4 anymore, And at some point, people won't want the danger element of Lab4, but that's when we move on and do something else. And so we've basically worked with record labels that have been prepared to release what we've said, right, okay, we're happy with this. This tune's ready to go. We've already tried it out in our live set. We know it works and we're not going to change it. So that's kind of been the basis on or the decisions we've made. So we did work with Tidy Tracks, who was probably the biggest label we've worked with. But having said that, we did have a couple of headbutts with them where they wanted us to change tunes, and we were like, well, take it as it is, or you don't take it, you know. But, so that's the basis on who we decide to work with, you know.
And finally, if you could change one thing in the trance or electronic music scene, what would it be?
This sounds a bit kind of what's the word? I don't know. I think there's a bunch of live acts that deserve a bit more recognition, actually. I don't know how things go in Canada, but in the UK, it's got to the stage where the live set is actually the high point of the night. And there's a couple of live acts, a live act called K90, and we can play the biggest events, we can have the best reaction from the crowd, you know, and then you read it in the press the next month, they mention all the big name DJs, you know, they get played on the radio and all that shit, and there's no mention of us or the other live guys, and it gets a little bit frustrating just because you know, we know everyone enjoyed our set, and then the kids that buy the magazines, they want to read about, you know, say, just for argument's sake, you know, Lab4 or K90 was the high point of their night. They want to read the magazine and read that was a great part of the night, not read about all the other DJs who I'm sure played great sets and stuff. That's maybe the only thing, yeah. I don't know what happens. Don't know what the score is with that, but it's the way it's been for for 10 years of us being Lab4. It's kind of good they don't ever write anything bad about us, but it gets a bit frustrating when you don't ever get mentioned, you know. So.
I just want to thank you very much. It's been a pleasure seeing you and talking to you, and thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Now, just before you go, if you could do, hey, this is Adam from Lab4. Hey, this is Adam from Lab4, and you're listening to Amplified Radio. If you could just do that, and I'll throw it in over top of my DJ sets when I drop one of your tracks.
Amplified Radio.
Amplified Radio.
Okay. Hi, this is Adam from Lab4, and you're listening to Amplified Radio.
Thank you.
Thank you, mate.
It's a pleasure.